Welcome to Music Forever, a podcast by the New Horizons International Music Association. I am Irene Cohen. Jennifer Peace has degrees in music and education from Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, as well as a Master of Music degree from the University of Toronto. She also studied conducting and music education at the University of Michigan. She is a retired high school music teacher and was the head of arts for the Halton Board of Education for more than 30 years. She is actively involved in her community music-making scene, playing co-principal trumpet in the Oakville Symphony, as well as various other community orchestras in the area. She is the founder of the Falgarwood Brass Quintet. She also has an interest in music theater and has music directed and conducted many community music theater productions, both in schools and in the community. One of her retirement projects was to start the New Horizons Band of Burlington, Ontario, a plan she put into action in 2012. She started with 6 valiant members, and today her group numbers well over 60. Recently, a new beginners band was started. She enjoys working with adults, and she believes in the New Horizons philosophy that it is never too late to learn something new. The interview took place in November of 2024 in Burlington, Ontario. So hi, Jenny.
Hi.
It's wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here.
And I want to thank you because Jenny had invited me to come to Burlington, Ontario, which is not far from where I live, to play along in their swing band. And then we went for a happy hour. So here we are having this interview feeling pretty happy. So Jenny, typically the first question is, how did music get in your life?
I think I had a fascination. I wanted to play the piano when I was a small child. We were a relatively middle-class family and didn't have a piano. But my mother wanted to, support this. So there was a fellow named Mr. Bim that came around to my public school, and you could sit in and take piano lessons. So they signed me up. It was probably like $2 a lesson. My neighbors, the Garvins, had a piano, and I was allowed to go whenever I wanted to over to their place at a certain time and knock on the door and go and use their piano. Otherwise, I practiced with the cardboard keyboard that you used to have.
Right.
So that's how I first became interested in music. And my sister, who was older than me, played the French horn, and she had found a real community in the music program at North Toronto where I went to school. And listening to her, I really wanted to be part of that too. So I wanted to take music as an elective as well. And I was handed the trumpet to play, and that just started everything. I had one of the most amazing music teachers who really inspired people to be their best, and had North Toronto was very, very supportive of music and had fabulous programs. That's how I began. Never thought I would take it at university. I wanted to be a journalist. Went to Queen's because there was one course that you could take if you were not a music major that gave you the chance to have lessons and play in the wind ensemble and do a bit of sight reading and sight singing. And because Queen's music program was quite small and there were only 4 trumpet players there, at the end of the year, they invited me to join the music faculty.
For those who don't know where Queen's is, Queen's University is in Kingston, Ontario.
It is.
Why did they give you a trumpet, or was it something you wanted?
No, nothing like that. I was late to class. I wanted to play the saxophone. The trumpet was the only instrument left. So I said, sure, because I was a shy little kid, grade 9. I took it home, and my mother said, why on earth did you play the trumpet? Couldn't you get something more feminine?
Yes.
I like it as an instrument because it's so versatile. I absolutely fell in love with orchestral music when I was in high school. And I was so excited because I had the opportunity to play incredible pieces of music by Stravinsky and Beethoven. And this thrilled me to no end. And I loved being part of the orchestra, and then was able to be part of the Toronto Youth Orchestra as well. So that was another incentive. But playing the trumpet, I could play in concert band. I could play brass quintets, also something I love. And I could play in orchestra. But in those days, girls were not allowed to play in the jazz band. But it was a time of change. And eventually during my time there, I was allowed to play in it. So I got that experience as well.
And this is so interesting, and it has been mentioned by other people. The feminine instrument or the feminine band. Can you comment on that more?
I think it's gone out the window much more now, but we're talking in the 1960s, 1970s. And yeah, there was a certain characteristic that symbolized each instrument. And the flute was a lovely feminine instrument to play. It was small, you could carry it around, and it sounded really pretty. But the trumpet, I mean, look back in history and how many female trumpet players have there been. So it's always been a challenge for me. I went to university in my first year to play trumpet lessons that the trumpet teacher, who was a military gentleman, would not teach me because I was a woman and he thought I would cry if he gave me trumpet lessons. So eventually that dissipated and I was able to take lessons from him and learned a lot. But that was a huge time of change. At Queen's, you did just general music for the first 3 years, and then you specialized in something. Again, because Queen's was so small, I was able to play in everything. So I played in music theater, I played in the orchestra, I played in the wind ensemble, I did, as they say, brass quintets and small ensembles. I then decided to do education. In the third year, you directed yourself either education or composition. And I went to Teachers College there. And then after I started working, was able to get a job, the idea of having a salary was quite seductive. I don't know if I realized how much the idea of teaching kids music for the first time would excite me. And I found I had a real passion for that, and seeing them make their first note, or when they got to be senior students, and sharing my passion for the music that I had become really interested in. It was just wonderful.
Did you have any musical family members?
My dad was a drummer, and he loved to play jazz drums, and he and his two brothers, one brother played clarinet and the other played piano. And they would play a jazz trio. And their habit was whenever they got together for Christmas or everything, they put the stereo on and they play along to all the big band jazz artists. So maybe I got something from him. My uncle was a high school choral conductor in Toronto and in Markham, and then also up in Bancroft for a while. So maybe there were some genes there. I think my mom played the piano. When my mom turned 65 and retired, I decided, because she had been so supportive of me for so many years, I decided that her being involved in a musical group would be something that she would really enjoy, because she loved people. She was very vivacious. So I bought her a clarinet, and maybe this is what started my interest in New Horizons. She took some lessons, and she actually joined a band in Toronto that she went to every Thursday night. She said she never got much above third clarinet, but she loved the experience. And I was happy because I wanted her to have that experience that had been so meaningful to me. So I was working at White Oak Secondary School in Oakville. My first job was part-time drama and part-time music. I signed up and took the courses in the summer to qualify myself to take drama. And then I had an incredible opportunity. A brand new school opened that was called E.C. Drury. It was sort of beside the School for the Deaf up in Milton. And their idea was whatever they could do to integrate hearing impaired kids with regular kids. I was so lucky to be part of this team because it was a group of idealistic people with incredible ideas that would support one another. And it was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And one of the best things that we ever did was integrated combined hearing deaf musicals, so that we would assign 2 people to each character. One would be deaf and one would be hearing, and they would interchange parts throughout the show. So at some point, one person would be signing a beautiful song while the other one in the shadows was singing behind them.
Explain a little bit how you teach music to a child who's hard of hearing or potentially completely deaf.
I worked in coordination with a deaf teacher who was the director for the deaf kids, and she had an interpreter with her all the time, but there were things that she missed that we could sometimes say to each other. So we had to be really careful, but she was very talented. There are vibrations that can be felt, and we got to learn. But there was this one woman, we did a production of of Oliver, and the young girl who played Nancy just had this lyrical, musical ability to sign. And she would stand in front and sign the song while the hearing person sang it behind. And it was an absolutely beautiful moment. We had two Fagin characters, and sometimes they would sing together in a song like reviewing the situation. They would sing as if they were discussing it with each other. And we learned a lot. There was a play that had come out right around that time called Children of a Lesser God. And the children of a lesser God were, of course, the ones with a hearing impairment. And we realized that you don't have to interpret everything. You can sometimes leave things up to the audience to understand what was happening just by the way in which the character responded.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a huge learning opportunity, but very, very interesting. And one of the deaf people who was in those shows ended up working professionally. There's a school in Washington, Gaudet, I think, that trains actors for the deaf, and he was in the third son, Mr. Hollis Opus, who was the deaf son. So it's kind of exciting every time I watch that movie.
Can you describe what that experience would have been for a hearing child and a deaf child combined?
They became best friends. Like they were, they all fell in love with each other. They all learned to sign because there was something new, and it was a new relationship. And sharing the role really allowed them to share parts of their personality as well. But the other wonderful thing about that school was they had different levels of, the terms have all changed, mentally challenged students. And I was very interested in that too. So I would invite the group of, they were called trainably mentally handicapped at that point. Every Friday they would come to my music room when I had a free period, and we sit in a circle and we'd do music and we'd sing songs with the guitar, and I would see what I could do to get them to interact. And I even did a program where I sort of tested them all for physical skills about clapping to music. I did that for 4 years, but I applied to the Canadian Department of National Defense, but I ended up teaching in Germany for 3 years at the Canadian Armed Forces in Baden-Baden, which is pretty incredible. And I had my own car and access to all of Europe. And I was teaching music to students that were there that were children of the armed forces. But then I also had access to playing in my German community band and playing as Boo Papa band that I played in for a while too. And also we did all kinds of workshops with children from different nationalities and cultures that we were bringing them all together. So that was kind of neat too. I came back to Canada because there was a job open for me. The fellow that I had originally worked with at White Oaks was retiring. So I slipped into his position, and I taught at White Oaks again for another 7 or 8 years, I think. And then I did the department head thing mostly because I was very, very adamant that music should be still in the classroom, and it was under threat in those days. So as a department head, you had more say in how they did sectioning and what people would do. So
In the meantime, what were you doing musically for yourself? Did you play in orchestras? What sort of thing did you do?
I played with the Oakville Symphony for about 45 years now. I even was assistant conductor for a couple of years because I did some courses in Michigan on University of Michigan in conducting because I wanted to do a master's at one point because I just wanted to learn more. And they had awesome courses in conducting where you worked with the greatest band directors all over the States. And each one came for a week and you're just drank in everything you could from them. But I also had a chance to conduct the University of Michigan Wind Ensemble, which was all the performance majors that have decided to stay there for the summer. So again, that was absolutely incredible. So wow, I did a master's at UT, which was very different, not as practical. So I loved the combination of everything that I learned because in Michigan, there was so much practical information. I would come back from there so excited about what I learned to take into the classroom. And I remember others, American students down there saying the same thing. But I also loved U of T because I really enjoy philosophy and thinking about how to do things. And there was a lot of research there, not as much practical stuff, but I did a major thesis on creativity, which fascinated me because we were always being asked to evaluate creativity as music educators. And how do you do that? I was also trying to find a way to get away from the standing in front of a band conducting. So delving into the nature of creativity really gave me the opportunity to do this.
And I attended your class today. I was particularly impressed with your level of creativity that you put into the class when you had us all improvise in the most simple way. And it showed that the people in your class are very, very comfortable with what you are bringing in or asking from them, because no one sat there and said, I'm not going to do this. You are creating creativity and comfort in the classroom.
All the education I received about music was it should not always be just about performance. And I do find the American philosophy is primarily performance. However, I went to a high school where that was the case. It was primarily performance. You had to be the best. You had to win the Kiwanis Festival. You had to be better than everyone else. I never liked that aspect of competition. It took me a long time to come to terms with what the relevance of competition was in music. And I do believe now that it has some importance, but I think that American music systems put a lot of importance on it. So they're vying each other for first section leader chair. Like once a month, you can challenge somebody else to get your part. And they do get better and better and better, which is good. But I was always taught that that wasn't the essence of music education. So there's a huge difference, I think, in philosophy between what we're doing in Canada and what we're doing in the States. But there are incredible elements of both.
At some point in time, New Horizons got in your life.
And our head caretaker at White Oaks was the most amazing man. So supportive of music, so supportive of the kids, so supportive of me. And when he retired, the music department as a whole, on my instigation, gave him an instrument. And he went and in his retirement learned to play it. I thought that was awesome. And then, as I told you, I did the same thing for my mom. And she did that, and we would play together a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I think that was how it first sparked my interest. But I didn't know even about New Horizons until I retired. And I saw an advertisement in the Whole Note that the Toronto group was looking for somebody to teach. So I applied and went down and had an interview and was hired and kind of learned all about it as I started to work with a group there. So I worked with a beginning group that then became an intermediate group for a couple of years, but always with the idea it was something I would love to do in Burlington. As adults, especially ones that do things like that, we're used to being successful in what we do.
Yeah.
And to start something brand new where you're not necessarily, it takes a long time to be successful. Again, it's the excitement. I have never gotten over that excitement when I've taught a kid to get a note for the first time. So when you see adults doing that, it's even more profound because they never thought they could do it. So with my own group, within a couple of years, and we played a concert for somebody, they were aghast that they would be sitting there playing music for other people to listen to.
Yes.
So I guess you get such positive feedback. I would say the majority of the time is just really exciting to watch people learn something new and enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you at some point decided, okay, I've learned what this is all about in Toronto. I would like to start my own group in Burlington, which is just west of Toronto. For people who are out there who may be listening and are interested to start something like this, go through the process of what it takes to start a New Horizons band.
I looked at all the information on the New Horizons website, but I was invited to the band camp that you did years ago at Brock University. I was invited as somebody to come and learn and to talk to Roy Ernst and to learn about the program and how to run it. So I happily went up there and I spent 3 or 4 days there, and I went around and listened to what other people were doing and talked to everybody else who was there. So I decided I would rent a room at a church and just stick it out and see what happened. I found mostly that it's people that people tell other people. The Hamilton Spectator came out and did an interview with me and put this whole big page article that was absolutely wonderful. And then suddenly the phone was ringing and all kinds of people wanted to join. It's also kind of exciting that you're training people and they're going out to playing community bands too.
So here you have your wonderful players for the last 10 or 12 years playing and getting better and doing whatever they're doing. A few years ago, we had a band camp in Mont-Tremblant, and you reached out. You sent an email and said, is there anything I can do for you guys? We said, sure, why don't you just come? You were there, you explored, you also assisted, you took part in the fun, and we gave you something called a scholarship, where you were partially funded to participate in this camp to sort of learn how to do this sort of thing. Now you are actually up to organize 2 things in 2025. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I enjoyed my time at Mont Tremblant so much, and was so appreciative of the fact that you had invited me to go and learn about it, that I'm like a payback kind of person. I always feel as I have to give back. So I had committed to doing a 1-day band workshop where my band will be the hosts, and we will invite any band members from any of the New Horizons band in the area to come and spend a day with us. And we'll play music together, and we'll serve them a lovely lunch. Just collaborate, playing music together.
And that is a wonderful thing. I mean, we often think of our New Horizons camps at these 3 to 5 day camps where there's quite a bit of programming. But some camps do the 1 day or 1 weekend, or in fact an exchange with another New Horizons band. It's a great example of music making rather than performing. You take your instruments and you just join in. And you don't have to be perfect, but you're just having a good time. That will take place in April.
The 15th.
The 15th, and we're going to certainly advertise that on our website. And that would be for groups who are close by, be it Canadian or I guess American in the northern New York State or area, but people who are, drivable distance for the 1 day. You are also invited to be an official conductor at the Mont Tremblant Band Camp that will take place in October 2025. Can you describe what these band camps mean, or what you see is happening during these camps?
I guess what I saw primarily was a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds getting together and connecting through making music, challenging themselves, supporting each other. Even in I played in the intermediate band, which was really fun. There was one woman in our trumpet section who was excited about buying a new trumpet. And the entire trumpet section was there with her, helping her choose it, playing it for her, helping her hear what it sounded like. And we finally brought it. There was this great joy amongst our section. And there she was playing it at the concert. So, I mean, that's a small thing, but that kind of camaraderie was really fun. I was happy that there were about 13 members of my own group there. So it was kind of fun to be with them in a different way. I learned more about how to make music accessible to people. I learned more about how to bring the best out of people. I spend time watching the conductor and seeing that works, that didn't work, this works.
If there's somebody out there who approaches you and says, I've never played an instrument, or it's been 50 years, I'm scared, where do I start? What would you tell them?
I meet people at Long and McQuaid, and they have been very supportive of me. They make rooms available to me when I go up there, and I met with groups of beginners or just one beginner at a time, and we bring out all the instruments and try them out. What do you think about this? How does this work? What do you think? So that's how I begin. But then I also have a method book that I use that I'll show them, how to do the first little steps. I've also advised people to take a couple of lessons when they're first beginning, just to make sure that they're holding the instrument correctly and they're making the right moves to play it correctly so that they don't start something wrong and create bad habits. I go back and reinforce theory, like names of notes and how to find them in scales and sharps and flats and all of that kind of stuff. Over the COVID, I did a online theory course for some of them, which was really cool because they would get it. And you could just see the light going on, and they would ask the next question that made perfect sense to go on to this chord structure or this scale.
Right.
It was pretty exciting to see. It's really added to my retirement life. This fulfilled me in a way that I could still teach, which is something that I'm passionate about, to other people that were passionate about it as well. And to build, I've built this community of 65 people that tell me Tuesday is their favorite day of the week. That's awesome.
That is pretty awesome.
And it's not me, it's the fact that they're coming together doing music, but I get to be the one that they say that to. So
yeah, I want to thank you for everything you are giving to so many people in your community. It is really beautiful to watch and to experience. You and so many other conductors who have either founded or are continuing with existing New Horizons groups are to be admired. It requires a lot of motivation, a lot of energy, and a lot of insight and will to continue. So And thank you so much for giving this interview. And I'm looking forward to April and October 2025, where we're going to play and make a lot of good music. So
we are.
Thank you.
It'll be great. Oh, you're very welcome.
I would like to thank Jenny Peace for giving this interview. If you would like to find out more about Jenny Peace's New Horizons Band in Burlington, Ontario, please go to www.newhorizonsbandburlington.com. Music for this podcast by Mary Riddle, Swag On. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Music Forever. If you are interested to be interviewed for this podcast, please email us at nimapodcast@gmail.com. That is NHIMA podcast@gmail.com. See you next time.